evening, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started with our school board meeting. I call this meeting of the Winthrop School Board to order. Please join me in rising to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For our roll call, we do have Catherine. She is on her way, second traffic, but and our student representative, Abby, she is at a soccer tournament, so she will not be joining us this evening. Are there any adjustments to the agenda? No. Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the Winthrop School Board meeting of November 20th, 2025 as written.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thanks very much. At this time, we'll enter into public comment. If there are any people in the room that would like to come up and speak, we can do that, or those on Zoom. And I just would like to remind the audience and those who are speaking today that the board welcomes your thoughts during the public comment portion of our agenda. We value feedback and want to hear the comments and questions. Members of the public may speak on any subject directly related to the operations of schools, except for personnel matters or complaints concerning specific employees or students. Those shall be addressed through established policies and procedures. Comments by individuals are limited to a maximum of 3 minutes. At a meeting, comments will be addressed to the board chair. This is not a time for the board or superintendent to engage in conversation or discussion or respond to questions or concerns. Requests for information or concerns that require future research or follow-up may be referred to the superintendent. Speakers are expected to follow rules of common courtesy and refrain from engaging in disruptive, combative, or disrespectful conduct. When you go to the podium, we just ask that you would give us your name and your location for your residence.
My location?
Just your residence.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Bruce Burns, and I'm a resident of Winthrop, Maine. I live on 20 Forest Avenue, and I'd like to address the board with regards to recent developments financially with Lion Electric, and they're, I guess, perilously close to bankruptcy in the Canadian courts, and the massive layoffs they've had, and the closed plants in Joliet, Illinois. All those things should be taken into consideration when you weigh your ability to be able to vote on the electric buses and personally their inability to be able to effectively carry children. As I stated at the last meeting, it weighs heavily on you, this responsibility, and your actions tonight and votes, whether yea or nay, will be weighed very, very seriously by the taxpayers and residents of Winthrop. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bruce. Are there any additional public comments, whether in the room or on Zoom? We'll go ahead and close our first public comment section and move into our reports, starting with our superintendent report.
Thank you. Good evening. In your folder this evening is the monthly financial statement for November. In the month of November, we spent $157,000, leaving $1.6 million in the unencumbered balance. We are projecting our ending balance to be around $10,000 at the end of the year, so the budget remains extremely tight. We have consulted with the town and school lawyers around next steps. This could include charging some capital improvement projects that were cut from the budget to the reserve account that has $318,000 left in it. This will give us some additional funds in this year's general fund. We are still waiting until January to decide whether we need to go back to the voters to move some of the remainder of the $318,000 to the general fund to get through the year. The administrative team continues to work diligently to expend funds for only essential items. And the auditors are still currently working on last year's budget. streamlined budget, safety, and improving student achievement. I did receive an update from Lincoln Disler from Lion Electric late today. It remains Lion's intention to finalize the agreement with the agreed payment plan of $57,000 that they owe us for last year's buses that we rented due to the issues with the electric buses. Because they've had delays over the last couple of weeks due to the recent workforce reduction, Lincoln cannot provide me with a specific date of when I'll receive the written agreement. I've read that the workforce reduction in the United States will leave Lion with about 300 employees who will focus on bus manufacturing, sales and delivery, and customer support. The board's next learning opportunity will be December 11th at 2:10 at the high school to learn about the response to intervention process that the high school is using to ensure all of our students meet with success. And I was lucky enough recently to attend the Drama Club's performance of Clue at the high school. Our budding thespians did an outstanding job, and I just want to congratulate the entire cast and Alexis Descoulias, who directed the play, on a job very well done. And as we continue to partner with our community in a variety of ways, I just wanted to let you know that the Christmas Angel program is a joint effort between Pat Harris, a community member, and Danielle Doucette, a teacher at the high school, as well as our nurses, Jen Blades and Jeannie Ross. This year, this partnership will be providing 32 families, which includes 75 of our students, gifts for the holidays. And this has been in place for many years, and is just one example of how our community continues to work with our schools to support all of our students. And that concludes my report for the evening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Foley. Moving on to the school board chair report, I do echo the sentiments that Dr. Foley said about the production of Clue. I also was able to attend, and it was a wonderful production. And that's basically it, because we've had a short 2 weeks with break. So nothing else to share. So we'll go ahead and move on to 4.3, our student representative report by Joseph.
Yes, this will be a rather shorter one. We didn't have much to discuss, but things did happen. Multiple Thanksgiving themed advisory things happened in the high school before break, with the entire building participating in both Thanksgiving door decorating, but also NHS hosted annual turkey bingo, which both were big successes. And just echoing what Mrs. Lawson and Dr. Foley said, the Clue production was incredible. I was lucky enough to go, and it really was job well done. Furthermore, the high school civil rights team is working on Hidden Gems, which is both a bulletin board and a WPS film segment, so to spread awareness and give people book recommendations to look into. Lastly, on the other hand, winter sports have started up well, with both girls and boys basketball having games in the next 2 days. I know the student section has been pretty good and healthy so far. And skiing has started up, with Nordic being able to skip dry land altogether. And indoor track has had a great start, with a lot of new kids coming up to join the team this year. That concludes my story.
Thank you very much, Joseph. Moving on to our committee reports, starting with our finance.
Finance did not meet.
And policy.
Policy, we are regularly meeting, and we have some policies to discuss this evening, and our next meeting is December 17th, it's a Tuesday.
Thank you. And negotiations.
At negotiations, we are also meeting regularly with the bus driver negotiations.
Thank you very much, Catherine. There are no administrative reports today, so we'll go into item 5.1 under old business. To approve the following policies and procedures for second reading. I'll entertain a motion to do that.
So moved.
Seconded.
And discussion?
These are all second reads, so unless there's further questions, and I know that there are administrators on Zoom, if there are, but there's nothing new to report.
Okay. Does the board have any questions? Comment here?
Can I ask you guys one thing? Can all of you like get a little bit closer to the mics or bring the mics closer to you? They're nowhere near like the old mics. So really like how Tim got right up on it, we could hear him well. Having a hard time hearing a lot of you. So just a heads up.
Thank you. Okay, all those in favor of approving that? We have a unanimous vote. Thank you very much. I'll entertain a motion to accept the superintendent's recommendation regarding the use of the electric buses.
So moved.
Seconded.
Discussion?
Yeah, okay. So in your packet is a memo on electric buses, and we are recommending that we put the buses back on the road beginning Monday. But we have also outlined a pathway if the board decides not to put the buses back on the road. And now I'll ask Director of Transportation Josh Wheeler to come up and talk about these two pathways and to also explain further about the test driving that we have been doing for the past month, I would say.
Sure. Yeah.
Good evening. So, as Dr. Foley said, we have spent a significant amount of time over the past few weeks doing test driving on the buses. Each time we've test driven, we've documented the miles and the number of hours that we've driven, and also documented any issues that we've come across. I can give you a quick rundown. Anything that we've come across during the test drives, we have communicated with the technicians that service our area and filed support tickets as we always have. And all the issues that we have filed in support tickets have been rectified at this time. As far as specifics on our test drives, we have 4 buses. Like I said, each one we logged 67 miles on one of them in 3 hours of driving. Again, a few issues found that were corrected. Another one, we drove 47 miles for 2.5 hours. 47 miles in 2.5 hours actually on 2 of them, and then 41 miles in 2.5 hours on the 4th one. That 4th one is the one that has had no new issues since we started doing the test drives, and that's the one that we will plan to put back on the road depending on the outcome of tonight. All of our drivers have had training on the electric buses, and at this point, if we do end up rolling them back out, we will offer refresher trainings for them on certain procedures like startups and shutdowns, emergency procedures, controls that are specific to those buses and that sort of thing, so that it's fresh for them and give them an opportunity to drive them if they choose. As far as the plans that Dr. Foley and I have sort of drafted up, we kind of have a plan for how it will look if you do decide to have us return them to the road, and a plan if you decide not to have us return them to the road. If we do decide to return them to the road, as Dr. Foley said, we will commence that on Monday, December 9th. It would be bus E4, and Peter Nielsen would be the driver of that bus. Peter has agreed to do that. In that process, we would attempt to cycle through all 4 of the buses in order to keep each of them in running order. And anything that comes up in the meantime, we would of course continue to file support tickets with Lion as those issues are identified. Similar to the way that we handle any issues that come up with diesel buses, we have a dealer that we use for warranty work and a local mechanic that we use for non-warranty work. If we were to add these buses back into our fleet, it would bring our fleet up to a total of 12 buses right now versus the 8 that we're currently operating out of. If the plan was to not put them back on the road, we would basically have the commitment to maintain the buses in running order for a total of 5 years. So that would be until June of 2028, which is roughly 3.5 more years from now. The buses would need to remain plugged in, particularly in the cold weather, in order to maintain the integrity of the batteries and the electrical systems. and we would have to, of course, drive them intermittently in order to keep them mechanically functional. At this point, like I said, we have a total of 8 buses. We have 6 school routes. We have 1 bus used for our vocational route daily, and that leaves us 1 spare bus or trip bus. In an ideal situation, if we had a fleet of 10 buses, that would be great. That would give us the 6 routes, the vocational bus, 2 trip buses, and still 1 additional spare. Again, if the plan ends up being to not put the buses back on the road, that would involve budgeting money in next year's budget and the following year's budget to add additional vehicles to the fleet. The estimated cost at this point is about $115,000 for a regular diesel school bus, and then I project that a year after that it would be slightly higher, so I'm going to say probably about $120,000 the following budget year. And then at the end of that 5-year commitment, we would have to explore opportunities at that point to perhaps try and sell the buses privately, or see if there are other options that have come up by that point in time.
Thank you, Josh. Does the board have any questions for Josh at this time? Heidi?
I remember that we had talked about securing funds or a grant or something to purchase the diesel buses. Has that gone through, or where's that at?
So the end of last year, we got the emergency funding to purchase the 3 buses that we got last spring. That funding has been pulled through. We got that, no problem. As far as moving forward from here, we do have the option to put in for a funding request for next budget year through the Department of Education for that same type of underwriting where they sort of pay a portion of the bus each year. And that's something that we could certainly discuss if that's the way we want to go with that. One thing to keep in mind is that the fleet that we have now is very new. We're very fortunate to have what we have. It is simply a matter of trying to, if we do end up not putting the electric buses back on the road, we're just a couple short. So we would want to take a look at that option of requesting that funding through the state for next fiscal year and then the following as well.
So did the funding that you had spoken before, have we received that to be able to purchase the buses?
So the way it works is a little strange. We pay basically upfront and then they reimburse us over the course of 3 years. So since we got the funding last year, or last spring, for those 3, they're basically paying us 1/3 of each bus for the next 3 years we get paid back. So to answer your question, yes and no, the funding is coming, but it comes incrementally over the course of 3 years. So because we got 3 new buses, they'll pay us 1/3 of each bus, so a total of basically 1 bus gets paid back to us at the end of each of the next 3 years.
Any other questions for Josh?
So just to clarify, we can expect to receive from the state through this grant approximately $115,000, and when would that be remitted?
Perhaps Dr. Foley might have a bit more specific information on the timeline of that, because I don't know necessarily when, but my understanding is that it's a year after the purchase is made.
So one of the things that we have not checked on, that I cannot say that I'm sure about, is that whether they would also reimburse us for this particular bus. Because we now have a fleet of 12 buses. And so I don't know what that would, they don't automatically always give you reimbursement. Because usually the way it works is that you'll have a bus that's aging out and you'll contact the state and say, you know, we feel like this bus is like so many years old with this much mileage and we're ready to get a new one. And then you'll get approved or not approved depending on whether they agree. So I cannot guarantee you tonight that we would be reimbursed.
Clarify, I'm not talking about future purchases or future grant applications. What I'm talking about is the reimbursement for the 3 buses that we've already purchased.
Yes.
Given how tight our budget currently is, I'm eager to know when that might come from the state. You know, that could be very helpful.
Oh, that flows through your 279, so that's part of that money that we get.
And Monica, just to clarify, those are definite. Those
Yes.
were, I
Yes.
did that grant work last year and got that all approved. It's just a matter of waiting it out for the money to come back to us.
And Josh, for that specific program, that's an emergency program, so really we have to meet that criteria
That's,
of that program. So we
that's
may not,
correct.
as having a fleet already.
Well,
that's
yes and no. The funding vein that I tapped into last year was the emergency funding portion, because of the fact that, you know, where we were having to rent buses and that sort of thing, the state was very accommodating to provide us with the go-ahead to get these 3 additional buses. We do have the option to request additional emergency funding, which can basically be done anytime through the Department of Education. The advanced funding that I'm talking about, as far as if we decide to order another bus, say next year, and then one following that, that's basically money that we would put in for essentially now and go through a regular non-emergency funding process. So there's 2 separate veins of money or pots of money that you can ask for. One of them is like, we need it now type of thing for emergency replacement, similar to our situation, what we had last spring. And then there's the other pot of money that's essentially, we're looking ahead at replacing a vehicle next year or the year after that.
Thank you very, very much. Any other questions from the board for Josh? Okay. Any questions from the board regarding Dr. Foley's memo?
Clarifying question, is this our discussion yet or not yet?
We're moving into that now that we've already asked our questions of Josh, so yes. Thank you, Josh.
You're welcome.
Yes, go ahead.
I didn't want to push that way.
Oh.
So, do we say I make a motion and then we second it and then we discuss?
So I would then ask for a motion if we have concluded our discussions.
Okay.
I would ask for the vote. Correct. Yeah, thank you. So do you have any more things to discuss as a board regarding the memo?
Sure, I'll put it up there. As an effort to discuss, because I think that's a really strong position we have to take time to discuss what we all think about things before we vote. And so I think where I weigh in on this is both based on the situation with the budget, but that's not my driving force. I would support putting the electric buses back on the road. I think we all did a little bit of our investigation, and I hope we did due diligence to look into the stats and the any concerns we might have had. Just like any transportation or vehicle, there can be issues and there are risks that are there. But the electric bus is no more likely to catch on fire, for example. In fact, it's much less likely to, but they all have concerns that come along with them. So I support that. It's both in our best interest, I think, financially, the situation we are in. I do not believe that it puts our students at any greater danger or risk, and so therefore, because I think that is our primary focus, is the danger and the safety of our students. I also respect that people can have concerns and they would have options to use their transportation. It's our responsibility to provide transportation. And then I think new technology and there are environmental issues at hand, which I also think is a concern, and it's a significant cost to the district. We do not use that. So I am in support of putting electric buses back on the road on Monday, and I'd love to hear from the rest of the board members.
Thank you, Catherine. Anyone else?
I am not in favor for putting these buses on the road. As a mother with 3 children, especially a young one, I am extremely concerned. I know the dynamics of vehicles. I understand how new technology can have a lot of flaws. the other factors not important, but what concerns me is the fact that these buses had significant issues repeatedly. They have been repaired repeatedly, and we are still continuing to receive error messages. That is concerning with new technology. It's concerning the stability of the company who sits behind these buses. The liability concern for me on our district, especially with budget constraints, is concerning. If there is an accident, that we're pretty liable for that. And I know as a human being, I can't consider putting something on the road that's not quite safe, knowing that there's little lives on this bus. That is not my place to make that decision. That's a parent's decision. And I feel I need to do what's right for all our students and families and those that have voices and those that are not comfortable to speak up. I do not think these buses should be on the road. I think with all the issues, we need to really sit back and go over these buses. There's been a lot of misinformation through all our school board meetings regarding these buses. There's been information shared with our newspapers that have been misleading and not quite transparent, which is also extremely concerning. There was concern when we purchased the buses that jumping ahead and grabbing 4 would put us in a bad situation if they did not work well. Those concerns that were expressed were not considered when this push for these buses went through. And now we're in a position based on one's decision that has now impacted our district. And when it comes to all situations, the ones that always kind of bear the brunt of adult decisions are the children. And I am going to put our students first. And for me, that's more important than the environment and budgets and finances, is the children's life and safety. So with that, and knowing that, going through listening to the old tapes, that there was concern about water pooling on the batteries. I know that water and batteries, especially these ones, do not mix well. It causes a lot of fires. And once those fires start, they're really hard to go out. So that is concerning, and knowing that these batteries sit underneath the entire bus. So I do not support this, and I would rather hold off and figure things out to ensure the safety of our students.
Thank you, Ivy. Monica?
I also cannot vote to put the buses back on the road. I listened to the voice of the community at our last meeting and was reminded about the serious concerns that people have. We've had problems with these buses from day one. Josh has just outlined that we have, while we don't have, extra buses, we have sufficient buses without using these. And I say, we're here to listen to the community, to represent what they want. Why risk it? There are kids not willing to risk it.
Thank you, Monica. Any other questions from the board? Or comments? Okay,
I have no, please share yours.
So I support Dr. Foley's plan to use the bus E4 with Peter Nielsen as the driver, who's been involved in testing and driving the buses. I know, speaking about the water issue, I know we had an issue several months ago that has been fixed. That's my understanding. Things are safe, is what we're being told by Josh, and I'm trusting the authority that our director of transportation has. And I believe we also have a responsibility to follow their guidelines and what they've outlined for us. But I obviously understand that we don't always agree, and that's okay. Ivy?
I do have one more question. So if this bus does pass and go through, and since we need to provide transportation for our students, if families don't feel safe with their child on the bus, what is the alternative to ensure that we have buses to pick up these students?
Dr. Foley, can you differ on that one?
Well, I don't see us offering an alternative route where we would go and pick it up. I think transportation, as you know, there's a board policy where we pick up certain students that meet the guidelines, and when parents don't like where the pickup stop is or anything like that, there's always the alternative for the parent to make alternative arrangements. But on any given day, if the electric buses are on the road, we're going to be, if we have a diesel bus that breaks down, you know, we're not going to be sending out an alert saying, oh, by the way, bus X has broken down, and we're sending out an electric bus, and if you aren't comfortable with that, I mean, so if the board votes to use the electric buses, then we're going to be using those buses for trips and routes.
I'm just concerned because there's a lot of families that face barriers with transportation, and the concerns that our students are already behind academically. Teachers are struggling to catch our students up, and this would further impact a student's academics, and for that is concerning that we should be able to consider something to ensure that those families that do face those barriers and children can still maintain their education if they do not feel comfortable with the life safety of their child on these buses.
Thank you.
Just a couple comments. One, I do support planning to get the buses back on the road. Excuse me. I do a couple suggestions. Could we still ask for emergency funding? And just, no matter what, just throw it out there, see what we can get. If we can get a bus, there's no.
No, and Josh and I had talked about that, but there just wasn't time to do the research, but I agree that if the board would like us to pursue that funding, that makes sense, and I think it also would make sense for you to know whether that's an option, so it could be something that, you know, once we put the buses back on the road, we're going to know, you know, the minute we get an error message, they're gonna come off, right? So I think it would be good to know whether the state is willing to fund any more buses through either alternative, and we're happy to look into
Right,
it.
this is a proactive
Yes.
approach in case, if two of these buses work out and two don't, so we have a bus sitting there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tim. Any other questions from the board? Mark?
Just wanted to point out that we recently learned that a Lion is moving toward insolvency, toward bankruptcy. What would that do to the warranty on these buses? You know, we've had problems with them from the get-go. I anticipate we'll have more problems. I don't want kids on them. I don't want to repeat myself, but I think it's too risky for our kids, and this company is going under. There are other school districts in Maine, and the names aren't coming to me right now. We've had this in past discussions that have experienced problems with these Lion buses. I don't know if anybody has done a cost analysis, but I don't see them saving us very much money, and the risk is real. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Okay, we'll go ahead with the vote if there are no more comments. All those in favor? And those opposed? Thank you. We'll go ahead and move into 5.3 to approve the following course for the high school electives effective FY26 school year.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Moving into our new business, which we have none, which brings us back to the public comment second public comment section. So if there's anyone in the room who would like to speak or those on Zoom, let us know. We'll close the public comment section and ask, are there any suggestions for future agenda items? Monica?
This is not a suggestion for an agenda item. This is, however, because it's coming up December 11th, we have the opportunity to see what's going on with the RTI committee, with what's been going on to prevent school dropouts. We have Erica Dennett will be joining us in January as a new school board member. I think it would be appropriate to include her in that training, suggesting that we reach out to her so that she can have that information as well.
Right, is in the room. Welcome, Erica. Thank you, Monica. Seeing no additional future agendas, we're moving to the school board comments.
Just to quickly plug, next Wednesday, the high school Christmas concert, 5 o'clock.
Thank you. Ivy?
I also want to piggyback on the high school drama club. They did an amazing job. I'm so proud of all the students and the hard work. I also just want to share, I got to see a lot of the behind the scenes, these students traveling to each other's homes to work on hair and costumes and practicing lines, and the teamwork, you know, the building, the support with each other is amazing. It's awesome to see our students really building those connections within our community. So I just wanted to point that out because I think a lot of the people don't see the amazing stuff that goes behind the scene and how connected our students really are, and the amazing stuff they do to help each other out. They brought their own makeups, their own clothing for all these our plays. They go out and purchase stuff. So, you know, thanks to all our students. You're amazing. Awesome play. I can't wait for one acts.
Thank you, Ivy. Any other board comments? Student representative comments? Okay. So we had heard from the middle school that they were doing, I think it was in one of the, it might have been Lori's report, that they were, one of their ways to connect with parents was to send out these postcards. And I actually received one as a parent, so I thought that was really cool. And I just really appreciate making that connection that they're implementing this year. That was nice to get the postcard and then read about my student. And also we did hear, and I forgot to mention, we got an email today praising 2 of our bus drivers, and that was really nice to hear, Josh, so I appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, without any more comments from the board, we'll go ahead and move into our executive session. Those who have been invited to attend may do so, and those who are not